welcome everybody. Happy Wednesday. I love seeing all of these names and faces pop into our Zoom. Welcome to the Connect with Hope webinar for the month of September. This is your first time. We are so glad you're here. And just so you know, we do monthly webinars. So make sure you're following our social media for further topics as we move into the rest of the year. But for tonight, you have all registered to join us as we dive into the topic of suicide prevention and awareness. I'm just going to let everybody finish dropping in here, which is amazing. We're so excited to have you. We want to definitely recognize and be mindful of your time. We're so thankful that you have joined us. We know you're all super busy, but we want to jump right in because we have a lot of really incredible material to go over with you, and we want to be sure to leave some question and answer time, because if you're like me, I always have questions. So I'm going to jump right in and introduce myself. I am Dawnel DeRubeis. I am one of your Connect with Hope peer support specialists with NAMI, Greater Los Angeles County. You might hear us refer to it as GLAC. And I'm here with a very special guest who I will introduce as soon as I'm done with my presentation, and then my amazing team and our supervisor as well. So let's jump right in. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So again, welcome. This is the Connect with Hope Suicide Prevention and Awareness webinar. Our special guest tonight, who you will be hearing from very shortly, is Carolyn Levitan. She's actually with Didi Hirsch and the whole 988 system, which is absolutely incredible. And she's really going to dive into how does that work? What does it mean? And if you're like me, when I first heard about it, I had tons of questions. So we think your questions will definitely be answered tonight. For those of you new, we are NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. Again, we are with Los Angeles County, and we have tons of chapters within our umbrella. I apologize if I was muted. I'm going through who NAMI is. We are with Greater Los Angeles County. We're an affiliate of a national or country-wide organization, which is amazing. We work with our community for advocacy, providing support through support groups, through educational classes, really emphasizing that mental illness is treatable and people who are affected can lead fulfilling lives. We have several chapters or affiliates that support the Greater Los Angeles area, and you can find all of our chapter information, as well as upcoming events and other information, on our website, which is namiglac.org. So I encourage you to go check out our website, get familiar with the different programs that we offer. You will actually hear from my supervisor tonight, one of the main programs that we offer, which is our Connect with Hope team. Before we dive into the material, I'm in charge of that webinar housekeeping, or those guidelines. So I want to go through those with you. First and foremost, I want you to know that this is a safe, respectful, and confidential space. The webinar is being recorded. We like to be able to provide that to you at a later date once the recording's all done. Camera on or off, totally up to you. As much as we would love to see your face, we want you to feel comfortable in the space that you're within. So if that means cameras off, that's okay. We do ask that everybody stays on mute, except for me or our speakers, to help eliminate that background noise. We will have question and answer session at the end. So as we're going through the material, if questions come up for you, drop them in the chat, and we will do our best to address each of those toward the end of our presentation. And before we dive in, this was something very important to our team that we wanted to bring to you tonight, and that is to take a moment to recognize a couple of things. First and foremost, we know that this is a heavy topic, and we want to take a moment to honor those people that we have lost to suicide, to honor those people and recognize those that may be struggling in the past, now, or in the future. And to every person, a loved one, a caretaker, a friend, a colleague who may be supporting someone who may be struggling, we want you to know that we see you, we hear you, and we are here for you. So you never have to struggle alone. And that's what we really want to get across to you tonight to help you, help somebody in your life or to be able to help yourself as well. So I would just like to take a quick moment and just pause before we dive into the material. All right. Thank you all. Well, let's jump in. So I'm going to kick us off tonight. And this is a big topic. Like I said, it can be kind of heavy. It can bring up some things, but we really want to talk through what it means to have a conversation with somebody who may be struggling. And I thought it would be best to start at a place where we start shattering some of these myths, some of these things that we hear out there in society or in culture, and really provide the reframe, provide the actual fact that goes along with that. And one of the ones that comes up pretty consistently as we're speaking with people is the myth that talking about suicide increases the chance of a person acting on it. And the reality is that talking about suicide may actually reduce rather than increase. In my experience over the years, the many people that I have talked to that have struggled or have attempted, the one thing that has been consistent, regardless of their story, is that they just wanted somebody to talk to. They wanted somebody to ask, hey, are you doing okay? And really open that door for them to begin to talk about it. So please don't feel like if you bring it up that you might be planting something. You aren't planting anything. In fact, you may help to reduce that for them. The second piece is that people who talk about suicide are just seeking attention. The fact is, people who die from suicide have often told somebody in a maybe a roundabout way that they just don't want to live anymore. They don't see a future or they feel very hopeless. And so I always tell people, even if somebody says something about not wanting to live anymore, and then they laugh, still take that comment serious and still ask the question, hey, it doesn't have to be intense. It doesn't have to be asked in a way that you're trying to fix the situation, but just like make a response, right? Have a response for them and know that they're not seeking attention. There could be something there. And again, you're opening that door for them to be able to talk about it. You're creating a safe space for them. So those are two really kind of off the top myths that I know a lot of people bring up and they ask. And I want to note that it is far better to ask or express concern about somebody and it be absolutely nothing than not express concern, not say anything, and it be something. I hope that makes sense. The next few myths. Myth 3, and believe me, there's a lot more out there. This is not an exhaustive list. Certainly don't want to have a webinar that lasts all evening, but suicide can't be prevented. The fact is, suicide is preventable, but unpredictable. Most people contemplate suicide. They often experience intense emotional pain. Most people who are suicidal show warning signs, and we'll kind of talk through what some of those are, but just generally speaking, talking about hopelessness, withdrawing, becoming very isolated, or having these drastic mood changes that maybe you never noticed in them before. Intervention can save lives. Reaching out, offering support, connecting them to professional help can help prevent suicide. And here's the thing. That intervention is not that you have to fix it. It's not that you have to heal them. It's not that you have to have the answer, but you as a loved one or a friend or colleague, just reaching out and offering that level of support, offering to make an appointment with a professional, drive them to the appointment for that professional connection, and then following up with them after. How did that appointment go? I would love to connect with you, more consistently. And then mental health treatment, it will look different for every person, but therapy, medication, crisis intervention, all of these things are very effective in helping to reduce the suicidal thoughts and behaviors. The fourth one is that suicide always occurs without warning, and that's also a myth. There are almost always warning signs before a suicide. So here are some of those common signs that we encourage you to be very aware of and looking out for. Talking about suicide, and that may be direct and it may be an indirect comment. Again, just that feeling of hopelessness. Getting the means to take your own life. So actually kind of creating a plan or getting ways that somebody might take their own life. Withdrawing from social contact and wanting to be left alone. This one's really big. If you have a friend, let's say, who seems to be really social, always wants to hang out on Friday nights, right? Every weekend they have plans. And then all of a sudden they start withdrawing and those plans get fewer and fewer. That may be a sign that something is going on. Having mood swings, being preoccupied with death, feeling trapped or hopeless by a particular situation, increasing use of alcohol or drugs, a change in their normal routine. Maybe that's eating patterns or sleeping patterns or working or school or any of their normal routine. The kind of rule of thumb that you would want to look for in this is that change in normal routine for an extended period of time, which they say an extended period of time would be between 2 and 3 weeks. So if you start noticing this as consistent week over week, it may be time to reach out to the loved one and ask, is everything okay? Doing risky or self-destructive things. So, driving recklessly as an example, giving away belongings or starting to really get their affairs in order, kind of out of the blue, with no real logical explanation to it, just starting to do that. Saying goodbye to people as if they won't see them again. And that could be through a text, that could be through social media, it could be through a lot of different means. And then developing personality changes or being severely anxious. Again, we're looking for a change in the behavior, a change in the personality for an extended period of time, about 2 to 3 weeks. And then it may be time to speak up. And I recommend being very direct and providing the change that you notice. So I notice that you never want to hang out with us on a Friday anymore. What's going on? I notice that you've been missing work more and you've never missed that much work. Is everything okay? Can I help you with anything? Very simple, very casual. It doesn't have to be really intense right off the start. So how do you have this conversation? What do you say, right? I think before you even go into it, I'm just going to keep reiterating this because it's really important. You don't have to be the fix. And I know sometimes we want to go into it feeling like I have the perfect words, I have the perfect answer. The reality is, the person who may be struggling just wants that door to be open. They just want a safe space to be brutally honest of what they're going through. So be direct and ask openly. As you're having the conversation, don't be afraid to ask directly, are you thinking about suicide or are you thinking of hurting yourself? Showing that concern and showing that desire to support them creates that safe space that they don't have anyplace else. Listen without judgment. So no matter what the scenario is, no matter what they share with you, just let them express their feelings without interruption, without having to offer solutions. Just be that listening ear, really honing in on their emotions and providing them that comfort and that ability, as it says, to reduce their sense of isolation. Offer support and reassurance, assure them that they are not alone and help is available. You're going to learn a little bit about what that help looks like. Say things like, I care about you. I want to hang out with you again on a Friday. I want to see that you're succeeding at work. I want to help you with, the stress of school. I want to do these different things. Offering that type of hope can be incredibly powerful during a difficult time. And then encouraging the professional help. Again, we're not all professionals. We don't need to be, but there are professionals out there that can really become their support. So gently guide them to seek that professional support. And if you feel comfortable doing so, like I said, help them make the appointment, drive them to the appointment, meet with them for coffee after and ask how it went, right? Offer to really be that extra bit of support for them. These are the kinds of steps that can really build trust and guide the conversation. And again, then you become that safe person for them. And I put in bold, and this is something again that's come up in my years of experience, always check in on the strong. So I think we have this impression of what somebody might look like, where somebody might work, and we put this like image on somebody who may have a mental health condition or is struggling in some way. And so we sometimes forget about the people who seem to have it all together, right? Like the greatest job, and everything in their life seems fantastic. There's no way they could possibly be struggling. So someone struggling will often not reach out to you, and they may appear to be just fine. But I have to tell you that a lot of times those people get good at what I call faking fine. And so if we can just get it into our minds, wrap our minds around, we're not going to just check on the people in our life that we think are struggling because it appears to be that way, but we're going to check in on everyone in our life. Just a quick text, a quick phone call, a quick email. Just continue to really check in on everybody, even the people you think have it completely together. So that's a little bit around conversation, some of those warning signs that we wanted to bring. And now I think I'm going to be turning it over to our special guest here this evening, Carolyn Levitan. She is with Didi Hirsch, and she is going to dive into 988 and give you some incredible resources. Carolyn, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Dawnel. All right, let me just share my screen here. All right. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to be here. As Dawnel was saying, my name is Carolyn. I am the Senior Director of Crisis Care over at the Didi Hirsch Suicide Prevention Center. Oh, wait, I'm one slide ahead. Hold on. Here we go. Here I am. So I'm the Senior Director of Crisis Care at Didi Hirsch Mental Health Services at our Suicide Prevention Center. We're one of the largest providers of 988 calls, chats, and texts. I'm going to talk a lot more about the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline today. Excited to help everyone understand better about how it works, what it does, what it's for, and answer any questions that you guys may have. I'll also talk about how successful it's been and even cover some data of what the first 2 years of 988 has looked like. So first, I want to talk a little bit about the Didi Hirsch Suicide Prevention Center, which we call SPC, to talk about our crisis line. So we're actually the oldest suicide prevention center in the world. We were founded in 1958, and our crisis line actually started in 1963 with our founding fathers. They and their wives would take calls at their homes. They had looked at post-war suicide rates amongst soldiers after World War II and really noticed that, hey, some of these people write suicide notes, some of these people are struggling. Could we intervene? What could we do to help prevent people from killing themselves? And they really helped found the study of suicidology. So we were an inaugural member of the Lifeline in 2005. So the National Lifeline, which you may have known at the time, was 1-800-273-TALK. That started almost 20 years ago. So we've been doing it since then. However, 2 years ago, in July of 2022, is when 988, basically the Lifeline, transitioned. So you can still reach the Lifeline in 988 through the 1-800 number, but it was really discussed nationally that people need a 3-digit number. There needs to be an easier number to remember that people can access, because when we're in crisis, it's really hard to remember a 10-digit number. So the whole idea was, we have 911 for medical emergencies. We need to look into how can we support people in mental health crisis. So we're California's largest 988 center, and we're one of the highest volume centers nationally. So basically how the Lifeline works is, it is a network of over 200 independently run centers across the United States. There is a administrator of 988, which is called Vibrant Emotional Health. They're an entity in New York. So they kind of help oversee the whole network. But amongst these 200 centers, we're taking local calls from people seeking us out that are routed locally. And I'll talk a little bit more about the routing too. So Didi Hirsch specifically, we cover the counties listed here. And we're also the backup for the entire state. So if there's 12 988 centers in California, if one of the other 11 centers can't answer a call because they don't have any available counselors, the call will roll to us. And that's why 988 is so amazing and why they call it a lifeline. They call it a network because people will always reach someone. You'll never get a message machine. Even if your local center that you get routed to isn't available, let's say they're all on calls, you will get routed to a backup center. So that was really the purpose of the lifeline being created in 2005 as well, so that people in crisis would always reach someone. So the way routing has worked since 2005, the way calls have been routed is based on your area code of your, whatever phone number you're calling off of. Now, a lot of people, possibly you guys, some of you included, your area code does not match where you live. Because people are moving around all over the place. And it's really important for people to reach their local center because that local center is going to best be able to link them to local, specific, individualized resources. So recently, only 2 weeks ago, geo-routing was actually implemented. And I'm going to explain what that is. So it's not geolocation. So 911 has geolocation, which means that through their system, 911, if you call them, they can pin where you are. 988 does not have that capability. However, what geo-routing is it routes you based on the nearest cell phone tower that your phone is pinging off of. So the good thing about that is people who actually live in the counties we cover, no matter what area code they have, if they're calling from within these counties, they will always reach us. And we've already seen an increase in out of California area codes that have been routed to us, which basically means these are people that live in our community, but just don't have a local phone number. And so now they're getting routed to us, which is wonderful news. So we'll continue to see how that goes. But geo-routing cannot specifically locate someone. And that's also not the purpose of 988. And I'll talk more about that too. So we project that our center will answer over 200,000 988 contacts in 2024. So that includes calls, chats, and texts. So you can call, chat, or text 988 24/7. It's free, it's confidential, and it's available to anyone. I took calls for a few years myself as a counselor, and I think the youngest person I spoke to was a mom of a 3-year-old. A 3-year-old who had mentioned the word suicide, and the mother didn't know what to do or what to say. And I remember I also talked to a 97-year-old. So we get a spectrum of people that call us, and also people that call us worried about someone else. You do not have to be suicidal to call 988. You can be in an emotional crisis, you can be in a mental health crisis, or you can simply be worried about someone else who you feel like might be in crisis and you don't know what to do. We will guide you every step of the way. So what does 988 entail? So this is kind of the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. I don't know if anyone here has called 988, but when you call, you're going to get kind of a menu that basically says, there's certain, it's an IVR, which basically means press 1 for this, press 2 for that, etc. So there are some specialized services related to 988. So when you call, if you're a veteran, you can get linked directly to the Veterans Crisis Line, which is not 988. It's specialized for veterans. It's just like 988, but they also have access to sign veterans up for appointments through the VA. So it's much more specialized. So if someone's a veteran, they can press 1 to be linked directly to the Veterans Crisis Line. They can press 2 to reach a Spanish 988 center. We're one of those centers at Didi Hirsch. And people can also press 3 for LGBTQIA plus youth and young adults if you would like to speak to someone who's trained and works with that demographic specifically. And then if you just want to be routed to 988, you just stay on the line. There's nothing special you need to push. So what happens when you contact 988? So a trained, caring, and compassionate crisis counselor will answer your call or chat or text and invite you to talk about what's going on. I mean, really, that's how I would answer the call was, hi, my name's Carolyn. What's your name? What's going on today? Just open forum, opening the door, like Dawnel was saying, we just want to hear what's going on today and go from there. So as counselors listen to your story, they're also likely going to do these things. Ask what they can call you, ask a few demographic questions about you or the person you're calling about. Obviously, those are completely optional. You're never forced to give any information you don't want to. We're going to ask safety assessment questions if you or the person you're calling about that there's a potential for suicide risk there. And we're also going to collaborate on safety planning and next steps and potential resources, if applicable. We can also offer follow-up calls. If someone's still, the great thing about 988 is like, even if someone says they can only stay safe for an hour after the call, we'll say, can you stay safe for an hour? Could we give you a call in an hour and see how you're doing? And then we can figure it out from there. Like, our goal is always the least invasive intervention and keeping people in the community. So we will kind of take it step by step with a caller or a chatter or a texter to keep them safe. Only about 95% of our contacts are resolved over the phone, call or chat. So there's no in-person response that's needed. No calling of 911, no calling of mobile response or alternative crisis response. About 4% of the other 5% are people that are willingly or collaborating on wanting to go to the ER or calling 911 themselves or asking a friend to take them. Only 1% of the contacts that we take end in what we call is like an involuntary emergency service intervention, which basically means the person is at imminent risk for suicide or possibly has already done something they've already attempted, and they're unwilling, unable to safety plan with us or talk about next steps. And maybe that's because they're intoxicated. Maybe it's because, they just don't want any intervention. So by law, there are times we have to intervene in that way, but it is always a last resort and it's pretty uncommon. So which number should people call, 911 or 988? And I think there's talking about myths, like Dawnel was saying, when 988 first came out 2 years ago, when the Lifeline transitioned to the 988 number, there was a lot of kind of marketing around like 988 is the 911 for mental health. And it's really not, because what 911 is if you've got a medical, police, fire, or rescue emergency, and you need an in-person response dispatch. You need EMS, fire, or PD to come out to you. It is actually against policy for 911 operators to provide any level of emotional support or de-escalation when you call 911. So they are not there to do that. They are there to only link you to an in-person response. 988 is sort of the opposite. 988, we are there to provide emotional support, de-escalation, collaboration. Our last resort is linking to in-person response. So we're really focused on resolving the crisis telephonically or via chat text using the least invasive intervention. So like I was saying, over 95% of our contacts are stabilized through the crisis line without any type of in-person response needed. And then less than 1% of people need that, what I was talking about, like an intervention that they're not necessarily collaborating on because maybe they're unwilling, but they've already attempted, or they're at imminent risk. And by law, we have to do that. So here's some interesting data. This is just for our crisis line. So just for Didi Hirsch, we're a large subset of data though, but it's really interesting because we've been around so long. We actually looked this past July, so 2 months ago, to see how does our data and our demographics, how do they compare pre-988 and post-988? And you'll see like some differences in the volume. Obviously, calls have increased. Chats have decreased, but that's really because text became available and many more people are choosing to text now that text is available. And you'll see how rapidly that has increased over the last 2 years. But what's really interesting is this idea of the concerns that people are calling about. Pre-988, I mean, the data shows the idea that people really thought you had to be suicidal to call the Lifeline, that if you were in an emotional crisis, it wasn't the line for you, or if you were in a mental health crisis. I think we've done a much better job over the last 2 years of really educating. There's a lot more to be done as far as marketing. I can't tell you how many people in the mental health field I talk to who don't know what 988 is still. But you'll see that people are calling about issues other than suicide now. So we're getting people calling about relationships, anxiety, depression, and they may have been calling about those things before too, but I would say we're serving a larger spectrum of people dealing with mental health issues, which is the goal. We want people in mental health crisis to call 988 instead of 911, because 988 is the right level of care. So this is 988 nationally over the last 2 years. So in its first 2 years, 988 took 10 million calls, chats, and texts across the nation were answered. So that's 10 million people calling in crisis or needing assistance of some kind. So nearly 6 million of those were answered. So you'll notice that there's a lot of work being done to make the network more robust. You can imagine with the huge increase of calls in California, we saw just a 25% increase in calls just the first year of 988. We're really kind of catching up with that volume. And so you'll see some other kind of statistics here. There also is a video phone option for the deaf and hard of hearing, where counselors are actually on video phone and doing sign language with deaf or hard of hearing help seekers. That's a new service that's part of 988 as well. So what is the long-term vision of 988? 988 is imagined to not just be a line that people call. It's this idea of the start of really building out a robust crisis continuum in the United States, which is lacking in most counties. So this idea of these kind of three sides of a triangle, or this three-legged stool, we want people to have someone to answer the call. So 24/7 crisis call centers, that's 988. That's the service that Didi Hirsch provides. The goal for the state of California is they want us to be able to answer 10 million 988 contacts nationally, at that date. So from 2022 on, that's really where the state of California put its focus. We want to make 988 robust. Then the state really wants to focus on, we need someone to respond, because 5% of our calls, the person does need an in-person response or even wants an in-person response of some type. And we know that calling 911 isn't necessarily the right level of care, and having police sent out. We know that just sending someone to an ER to languish in a waiting room is not the right level of care. So we need more mobile response teams that are trained, that are co-responder models, that have mental health professionals as part of the team, that can actually go out in person and assess someone in the community to make sure that they're safe and see if they need transport to an emergency service of some type, like a sobering center or a crisis residential facility or an inpatient bed, which we're severely lacking in California as well. And then the third part of that stool is someplace to go, which is, can be crisis stabilization centers, peer respite centers, sobering centers, short-term crisis residential homes. So options other than jail and sitting in emergency rooms without open beds to be able to actually get care. We want people to go somewhere where they are going to access care and actually be helped, where it is going to be a non-traumatizing experience, where they're going to feel supported. And that's really the goal, is to create this whole continuum. And then if we think about this stool really having four legs, the idea that we also need to build out our mental health resources, right? Like, I don't know if anyone here has tried to seek out mental health resources, but you may call your insurance company says, call people in network, and you call like 10 people and no one's taking new clients and you can't find a psychiatrist. It's going to take 6 months to get in. Like, that is unacceptable. There needs to be parity with medical care for mental health care, and we need to be able to access care timely. So that is really the goal. The goal for California is that 80% of individuals who need some sort of in-person place to go would have access by 2027. So these steps 2 and 3 are more in the works. Just in LA County, for example, pre-988, their response times for their mobile response team was sometimes 8-10 hours. So sometimes we couldn't even send callers to them. We had no choice but to send 911 out. Now Los Angeles has really built out its mobile response team. Their call response time is usually around 30 to 45 minutes, so we can get people out there much more quickly, which is good, because then we can choose that option for people instead of 911. We also partner with LAPD, and we're doing this with other sheriff's departments where we have a diversion line. So we've gotten thousands of calls diverted from LAPD. So people that are calling 911 in a mental health crisis, the operator of 911 will answer it. If they deem it a mental health crisis call, they will warm transfer it to us at 988 so that we can actually provide them the emotional support that they're looking for. Because a lot of people are still seeking out 911 because it's been around for decades, and that's where people know to go for help. And so our goal is to really get 988 that same level of kind of visibility and kind of people feeling comfortable and safe with it. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the resources that Didi Hirsch has. Once again, here's some information about 988. I definitely even encourage you to try it. Try calling 988 and just or texting and just saying, hey, you know, I may need the service in the future. I'm not sure. I wanted to check it out and see what it was like. Or I may want to call for a friend in the future. I want to feel comfortable with it. Like, we're so happy for people to reach out and build comfort with this service. I'm always telling therapists to maybe spend a session calling 988 with your client and just kind of reducing stigma and myth that somehow this is going to be an unsupportive or scary experience, right? It's very scary to call a stranger and not know how they're going to respond to some of the deepest, darkest things that maybe you've ever experienced in your life, right? We're hearing from people on one of their most difficult days of their lives, and we want to make sure that we're honoring them in that. That they feel supported and that it's somewhere where they know they can always reach back out to. And then additionally at Didi Hirsch, we actually have longer term suicide prevention center services related to counseling. So if anyone has a history of suicide or suicidal ideation, I think there's a lot of work to be done also with therapists. I do a lot of training with therapists around building comfort and knowledge around suicide prevention. I think a lot of therapists, there's a lot to be desired there with their comfort level around talking about suicide. I think just as a nation and a society, there's still obviously a lot of stigma. It can be hard for many people to even say the word suicide, or are you going to kill yourself? Just those words people kind of shy away from. But we actually have highly trained licensed therapists at Didi Hirsch who are trained in suicide prevention, who specialize in suicide loss survivors, suicide attempt survivors, people at risk for suicide, caregivers of people that are chronically suicidal. And we also have support groups for people that have attempted suicide and also for people that have lost someone to suicide. So if you're interested in learning more about any of those services, you can go to our specialized website, which is crisiscare.org. It's an offshoot of Didi Hirsch, but it's related to our specific suicide prevention counseling center. All right. And that is, let me get out of here and stop sharing. And that is my part of the presentation. I think I'm sending it back to Dawnel.
Perfect. Thank you so much. My goodness.
Question?
Yeah, we have some questions. We're going to do question and answer at the end so that we can hit all of them. If you wouldn't mind dropping it in the chat for me, that would be amazing. I am making a list. We do have some in there. So yes, thank you so much. So much information. And I love that you spoke to the idea of this like stigma and this worry around what happens when we call 988. And so I just appreciate you diving into what is that experience really like? Who are the people that you're going to be connected to on the other line? So thank you. We are going to turn it over to my leader of the Connect with Hope team to share a little bit more about what we do and kind of the differences between what Didi Hirsch does versus what our team does. So I would love to introduce to Ligaya. It is all yours.
Thank you, Dawnel. I hope everyone can hear me. Yes, I believe so. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this conversation. It's really critical that we have these conversations. And so we're trying to do this with as much space and openness for everyone as we can. My name is Ligaya Sevilla. I run the Connect with Hope team. And our primary responsibility is running the NAMI GLAC or Greater Los Angeles County Warmline, the Connect with Hope Warmline. And we also, as Dawnel mentioned, we are in charge of the monthly webinars and we do outreach in the Los Angeles community at different events and presentations. And we have a calendar of things that we do monthly within the community. So these webinars are very important to us. We're very happy that you could join this evening. Really quickly, I just wanted to go over the Connect with Hope Warmline, as it is a resource that NAMI GLAC has and has become a pretty well-known resource in the community as of late. We were formed we are 3 peer support counselors, myself, Dawnel, and Patria, who will be speaking after me. I will go over hours and contact details later, but we formed the Warmline back in September of 2023, and we are currently just over about 900 calls that we have answered. The difference between a warm line and a crisis line, I just wanted to go over that pretty quickly. A warm line is a confidential free phone service offering mental health support. Unlike a crisis line or a hotline, they are not intended for emergency situations. Warm lines are typically staffed by volunteer or paid peers, people like us with personal experience with mental health disorders. So we all live and work, the three of us, with mental health conditions. So we have a lot of compassion and understanding for what a help seeker or a caller might be going through. And sort of like what Carolyn was saying just now about the 988 line, it's a very casual conversation. We just usually pick up the phone and ask how the person is doing, what their name is. We introduce ourselves and we just have a conversation with them. And we're just here to listen, provide support. We answer a great variety of calls and we listen to many different issues. So it may be someone suffering themselves, or they may have a family member or loved one who is suffering with a mental health condition. Of late, we've been getting a lot of calls from people out of state who are trying to support a friend or a loved one in the Los Angeles area who is struggling with mental health. So we are well versed on obviously the NAMI GLAC resources, such as our classes, our support groups that are free, and also resources throughout the Los Angeles County, which may be of help for someone that is suffering from a mental health condition. So as Carolyn was talking about, there's often struggles with access to care. So we might, if it's access to care, while we wouldn't be referring to any particular practice or practitioner, we can give people access to, it's actually called the Access Line at the DMH, the Department of Mental Health. We have a resource guide, so we know where there are mental health urgent cares. There's LARCA, which is the Association of Board and Care Homes for both elderly and adults. We come into all sorts of situations, and we just try to help people the best we can and offer support and just an ear for them. While we are not a hotline or a crisis line, we do receive calls from people who are approaching or maybe having a mental health crisis, and maybe they're struggling with self-harm or suicidal ideation. As peer support specialists, we're trained to listen to these help seekers. We offer coping skills such as mindfulness, grounding exercises. We may also refer them, when appropriate, to our NAMI support groups and classes or other resources throughout LA County. So we do get a lot of people who are really struggling, and sort of like what Carolyn was saying, they're having a really bad day. They may just need us to listen to them. And, we don't always give advice. Sometimes we're just listening and offering support. But other times, we do know how to de-escalate situations to a certain degree. We also do know how to assess for more of that emergency situation, more of that crisis situation. So if the person communicates to us a plan to attempt suicide or indicates that they are a threat to themselves or others, that is always assigned to us as the warm line to do a warm handoff, usually to 988 Didi Hirsch. So we will do that. We will stay on the line. We will transfer that person that is going through that mental health crisis to Didi Hirsch, and we'll stay on the line until they're comfortable speaking with the Didi Hirsch 988 representative. And then we may then hang up on that call. And then, of course, we will, when we need to escalate to the police, 911, or emergency services, we know when to do that as well. So the phone number for the Connect with Hope Warmline for NAMI GLAC is 818-208-1801. Our current hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. So there's always somebody on shift working a 5-hour shift. Sometimes there's two of us sharing a shift. So you will always reach one of us, or we'll call you back if you leave a message After hours, we will always get back to you between the hours of 10 to 8 on Monday through Friday. If you want to email us, you can email us at hope@namiglac.org, and that email will get forwarded to us, and we will return that email. Also, if you happen to call the helpline for NAMI GLAC, which is the number is not here, but I will provide that here when we send the presentation out afterwards. Those calls also get routed to us as well. So we really are the main support line for NAMI GLAC. Again, it's myself, Dawnel, and Patria who are here to support you. And we're just always here to support you, hear you out, let you know that you are not alone. We do have the skills to help you cope with different situations. We do know when to escalate to 988 or 911 when necessary. So if you are ever struggling, or you know somebody who is struggling and you're not sure that it is up to the caliber of like a 988 call or up to the level of a 988 or 911 call, you can always call our warm line first and we can help you assess that. So if you're interested also in becoming a peer support specialist, I thought it would be good to mention that NAMI GLAC offers a program where you can become a peer support specialist and get your certification. And if you would like more information on that, the email is here. We are going to send this presentation out after. Her name is Yvonne Miranda, and that's ymmiranda@namiglac.org. So with that, I'm going to hand off to our other peer support specialist, Patria, who's going to tell sort of a personal story and also remind us of resilience and hope to sort of end our presentation tonight. So Patria, take it away.
Hi, good evening, everyone. How are you? First of all, thank you to Carolyn, again, Dawnel, and Ligaya, our small but mighty team. And I also want to dedicate this to Damien and Jason, who I still hold very close to me in my heart. So let me start. So, in the depths of despair, when the world seems to close in, a lifeline can make all the difference. It's a truth we share both from personal experience and from witnessing the struggles of others. Recently, I faced a moment of crisis, desperately needing a safe haven to express my pain. And as I stand before you today, as a survivor, a testament to the power of hope and resilience, my journey through darkness led me to the edge, where I made a choice that would forever alter my life. I jumped. The impact shattered my body, leaving me questioning my existence. But amidst the darkness, a flicker of hope emerged. Step by step, I relearned to walk, guided by a voice within urging me to embrace life. Though I couldn't access support when I needed it most, a friend's kindness, Ligaya, also my supervisor at Connect with Hope, was a beacon of light. That was as of recent, so I thank you, Ligaya. It underscored a critical need for resources like Connect with Hope and 988, offering a listening ear and a lifeline to those on the brink. Through a tiny pinhole, I glimpsed a guiding light, unlocking it with my newfound passion for life. My experience and the stories of countless others highlight the profound power of human connection. We all play a role in suicide prevention by offering support, compassion, and understanding. We can help others find hope and navigate through their darkest moments. I reclaimed my agency, my spirit soared, and I stand here today or sit in front of you virtually, grateful for the love and support that carried me through. NAMI, Connect with Hope, my colleagues, family, and chosen family, my art, and creativity have been my solace, my lifeline. We must break the silence surrounding mental health and suicide. Let's create a world where reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. Together, we can build a community of support and ensure that no one faces their struggles alone. I am here. I will continue to share my story, to offer hope in those in need. Sometimes all it takes is a listening ear, a safe space to express the inner turmoil without judgment. Remember, there is always hope. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out. You are not alone. Reach out to our small but mighty team at Connect with Hope and excuse me, and let us at NAMI, Greater Los Angeles County, and Didi Hirsch walk this journey together. So thank you for joining us. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Dawnel to continue with some Q&A. So thank you so much. Check on those you love.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, and for your vulnerability, to open up and to share your look. I'm not going to look at you right now. Sorry. Just to open up that dark place and to share that there is hope and there is light and that we are not alone. And what an honor it is to be on this team with you, like you said, just tiny but mighty. That's what we are. So before we dive into questions, and I do have them here, you got a comment, says, thank you for sharing, Patria, beautifully said. Before we dive into the question and answer session, which I do have all of the questions, most of them are for Carolyn, which is amazing. I just want to remind each of you, really, when we wrap up tonight, I really encourage you to take a moment to remind yourself of how important it is to take care of you. If you are a caretaker for somebody else who may be struggling, if you are struggling yourself, after a conversation like this, it may feel a little difficult. It may feel heavy. It may bring some things up for you. I just want to encourage you to take 10 minutes after. Self-care is not a luxury. I know that sounds cliche, but it truly isn't. Just three ideas really quick. Just breathe and reflect, like intentionally breathe. I love the 5-5-7 rule. Breathe in for 5, hold for 5, breathe out for 7. That's what works for me. There's different ways of doing that. Journal down your thoughts. And I always encourage people, when you're journaling, it doesn't have to be beautifully written. Just dump your thoughts out all on a piece of paper. It just helps to kind of release it out of your mind. And then just practice some gratitude, right? You can look around your house and say, I feel grateful for that coffee cup, whatever. It doesn't have to be anything major, but just take a few moments this evening to do that. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up to some questions. One of them I'll answer right off the top. They are asking if this presentation could be sent out, and it will be. We will send this presentation along with the link to the actual recording. Give us just a couple days to get that all set up, and then you will receive that through email. So that's the first one. Got that handled. There is a comment for you, Carolyn, just saying thank you for taking the time this evening to speak on 988. There was a lot of information provided that this person did not know about, so thank you. Okay, so the first question for Carolyn is, what is the phone number of Didi Hirsch line?
So I'm not quite sure maybe what number that they're referring to, but to reach 988, you would just call 988. And now with geo routing, if you're located in Los Angeles County, Orange County, Ventura County, San Bernardino, Riverside, you will get routed to Didi Hirsch. So we do not have like a direct line to reach Didi Hirsch, because the reason that 988 was created to really create this national network so that people don't just reach out and then get a message machine because no one's available. If you want information on how to seek out services, you can go to didihirsch.org to see all the services we offer. We have outpatient services, we have crisis residential, substance use, and then you can also go to crisiscare.org if you wanted to learn more about those suicide prevention counseling services that I was talking about. If I did not answer your question, feel free to enter some more specifics and I will answer it again.
Awesome. Thank you. If the line gets disconnected, will the counselor call the person back?
So you're right, that sometimes does happen. There are technology issues. We would not call because we don't have consent. So we would not call the person back unless they, were at imminent risk for suicide or had already attempted and then the phone disconnected. If someone needs immediate rescue, like intervention, we would always try to call them back first to see if we can collaborate with them on that. If we would be unable to reach them and they were truly at imminent risk or had already attempted, we might have to call emergency services. However, we have to be very thoughtful when we call someone back without their consent because we don't know who could answer that phone. And we don't know if it's a safe situation. So if a call just disconnects and someone's not at imminent risk or we don't have enough information, we would not call that person back, but that person's welcome to call us right back. And we would take that call again.
Okay. What team responds to a 988 call if needed?
So 988 in and of itself does not have its own alternative crisis response, which is basically mobile response teams, which is the alternative to police officers in a police vehicle going out. So, a mental health professional, a case manager, going out maybe in an unmarked vehicle to go support and assess someone in the field. So just like I was talking about access for Los Angeles County. So Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health, their helpline, their access line, which is a number that you can reach to seek out different Medi-Cal-based services in Los Angeles for mental health. You can also go there to see what's my local, mental health emergency room. Where can I go if I'm having suicidal thoughts? Like if you have questions about where to go in person somewhere. And they are the ones that oversee all of the mobile response in Los Angeles County. So we have a special relationship with them. So if someone really needed in-person response, your 988 counselor, Didi Hirsch, would be able to warm transfer you over to the access line to reduce confusion and just allow you to get that seamless transfer and get the level of service that you need. So we've worked a lot in the last 2 years to get these kind of connections going between 911 and mobile response to make sure that people can easily be warm transferred and that you won't just be given another number, have to hang up and call someone else.
Amazing. Thank you. If someone texts 988 with intent or a plan once, but doesn't respond to 988 much, what do you do?
Okay, I did see that question. I'm not quite, and please tell me if I'm interpreting the question incorrectly or what was meant incorrectly. But I'm guessing that maybe the person's saying, I texted that I was having suicidal thoughts and then I forgot to respond to the counselor or something, or the text went silent, and is someone just going to come out and send someone out to me? So really, it requires a very high level of criteria to be met for us to send someone out to someone. We would have to know that someone has active suicidal thoughts, that they have an imminent plan. That means today, like after this contact, that they have the means, they have access to the means, they have intent, and they have a timeline, and they're unwilling or unable to safety plan with us or collaborate on other safety measures, like some sort of safety plan to stay safe. So if someone just called in and talked about suicidal thoughts, that's something we hear all day long. That is not something that's going to get an in-person response, unless someone really needs one or wants one. So I definitely just cannot reiterate enough that I feel like 988 is such a safe space to call about and talk openly about suicidal thoughts. Millions of people have suicidal thoughts every year in the United States. It is so common. And because of stigma, no one talks about it. I would imagine that probably, 75%, including myself on this call, have had thoughts of suicide sometimes in their life. So it's really not a big deal. And I think because of stigma and because therapists or doctors might be, really, too quick to seek out in-person response because they're not educated. They don't know the resources out there. 988 is one of the safest places to call with suicidal thoughts because we are trained and we do know kind of how to support someone and keep them safe in the community.
Yeah, that's great. I think one of the things that stands out is just that difference between 988 and 911. I know a lot of people that I've talked to have said, I don't want to call that because I don't want to just get arrested or, go down that path. So I appreciate that explanation of the difference. The next question is, where are the mental health urgent care centers
I think,
located?
hold on, Dawnel.
Oh,
I think Emily might have asked that question. I think
oh,
she just
yes, go
unmuted
ahead.
herself, wanted to ask something else. Yeah, Emily?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So my question was more about if someone's in the middle of a plan and they text you guys like, "Hey, I'm in the middle of this. I'm about to do this." And then you guys, say, ask a question, but then they don't respond. What do you guys do in that case? Do you call 911? Do you try to call the person, see if they answer?
Yeah, it's hard to say, Emily, because honestly, it each situation is so unique. So I think
Okay.
I would really have to know all the details of I'm one of the clinical on-call people. So people call me 24/7 from the 988 line to ask about like what should we do in this situation in order to make sure that we are getting that clinical consult in. But if someone said, I have 100 Tylenol right next to me, I plan on taking them. I'm going to take them tonight. I have every intent to do this, and then they go silent, that might be someone that we have to send an in-person response out to if we are unable to reach them. But yes, if they had texted us or called us, we would try contacting them first, usually multiple times, usually like a few times over, a 10 or 15-minute period. So we really make every effort to reach someone again and not have to go straight to an emergency service intervention without someone, because we want to give every opportunity for someone to collaborate with us on coming up with a plan together to stay safe.
That makes sense. So then, yeah, what about what about the in-person services? Are they limited to only this area in California, or are they statewide in certain states?
Yeah, so the counseling services that I was talking to at Didi Hirsch, the suicide prevention services, they're California wide, and we're limited by licensure. So our licensed therapists can only see clients, and we have in-person and teletherapy. But so we can see clients California wide who are residents of California and located in California, but we have in-person and teletherapy options.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
Thank you, Emily. The next question is, where are the mental health urgent care centers located?
Yeah, so I mean, they're like if you've heard of Exodus in downtown and Exodus in Culver City, that would be mental health urgent care. So it's like a 23.5 hour setting where it's not a 24-hour inpatient, but you can walk in, you can sit down in a comfortable chair, you can talk to a counselor in person, you can get stabilized on your medication, you can stay there for 23 hours and just kind of sit and rest and stay safe. That's really what we're talking about when we're talking about mental health urgent cares. But that's also a great thing to call. Like if you want to know where your local mental health urgent care is, you can call that Department of Mental Health access line, the helpline that Ligaya was talking about. And maybe we can include that in what's sent out. We can include that number. It's just, yeah, if you go to the Department of Mental Health for Los Angeles website, you'll see it right there. It's a 10-digit number. And that's the same number you would call directly if you need an in-person mobile response. If you know you need someone in person to come out and assess, then you can call 988 and we'll link you, or you can call the access line directly for Los Angeles County and get them directly.
Dawnel, if I can so the Connect with Hope team does have a list of the mental health urgent cares in Los Angeles County. So I'll be sure and include that in the resources that we send out after. So everybody will have that information.
Can you include me in that, Ligaya?
Absolutely.
Make sure that we have
Absolutely.
that too. Thank you.
Yes.
Amazing. Okay, the next question, I think this is the last one. Let me just make sure. Yes. Okay, so the last one for you, Carolyn, is there a standard set of assessment questions used by 988 and Connect with Hope? So it's both of you.
Sure. So for 988, since it is a national network that is funded through the federal government and the Substance Abuse Administration, SAMHSA, we do have to stick to a certain kind of what we call safety assessment. It's no longer called risk assessment. It's more, we want that positive terminology that we're trying to keep someone safe. We're not, trying to just focus on risk. We're trying to focus on safety. So, the common things, if someone's mentioning thoughts of suicide, we would ask around thoughts, plan, means, intent, timeline. We also ask questions that can make someone, at risk. Like, have you ever attempted suicide in the past? Have you lost someone to suicide? Do you have access to a firearm? Do you use drugs and alcohol? So there might be other questions that we ask that are relevant to help us best understand like someone's level of safety. But once again, those calling 988 does not get you just a counselor rapid firing demographic questions at you. It is really peppered in conversationally. The goal is talking to you about what's going on today and wanting you to feel supported. So sometimes we can ask the questions and sometimes we can't. Sometimes it just doesn't fit in. Sometimes someone's in crisis, and that would not be our priority. Our priority would be keeping someone safe.
And I would say for the warm line, we definitely let the person lead the conversation. We always want to get their name, their contact information, just in case we do get disconnected and they do want, us to get back in touch with them, or we have to. But we let the nature of the call lead the questions in many cases. So, if somebody says they're experiencing a high level of anxiety, then we might say, okay, like, do you know what coping skills are you comfortable using? Are you in therapy? Do you use medication? Do you have a psychiatrist? Then we get into access to care questions. And then that's when we may refer them to other resources. We are not case managers. Sometimes people call in needing, case management and a social worker. And that is not something that we are equipped to do, unfortunately, but we are equipped to get them to those resources and help them get connected with whatever help they need. So with the warm line, we really try to approach things casually, find out what's going on with the person. How can we help? We always ask, how can we help you today? And hopefully they'll tell us directly, why they called. And that leads into the questions that we ask. And we're always assessing, if it's going to be a crisis situation or a non-crisis situation. And I would say in my experience, I've done a transfer to 988 maybe 5% of the time. Most of the time, people just need some support and a listening ear.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to open it up one more time. If anybody has any other questions, go ahead and drop those in the chat for us. If something comes up after, if you're like me, I'm a thinker, and then a question will come to mind. You all should have my email from receiving the Zoom link, so please do not hesitate to reach out. And of course, you'll have the email again when we send out the presentation, as well as the link to the recording. I just want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your evening to spend with us. Based on the comments, it seems like this was enlightening, but I just, that's what we hope, is that you all feel a little more equipped to either help yourself or help a loved one. So thank you all, and be on the lookout for the email with the presentation. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.